thing on? Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Let me move this out of my face. There we go. All right. So just as a reminder, this is for the leadership track. If you are not part of the leadership track, you want to head upstairs. Just a reminder, those rooms are upstairs. Hi, everyone. My name is Krystan Resch. I am the head of partnerships at Discover.org. And today we're going to be hosting a panel on things that don't scale. And so it's one of those topics that, generally speaking, as leadership, we're always challenged with. Okay, we got to build programs at scale. We have to find ways to make the thing we're doing today bigger, better, faster. But in sales, we know that personality is super important. People buy from people that they like. And so when it comes to building things that scale, sometimes there's things that we're going to do that just are not scalable. They might be repeatable, right? But they're not necessarily scalable. So our panel today is going to talk about those different things. Today on our panel, we have Jeremy Leveille. Did I get that right? From Lead IQ. We have Melody Gilliam from Guru Technologies. We have Joe, I'm going to do it again. Venuti, thank you, from Sendoso, and Ryan O'Hara from Lead IQ. So throughout this panel, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, but I do encourage you guys to ask questions as we go along. Raise your hand. If I can see you, I will call on you, or we'll also do Q&A at the end. So to kick this off, I'm going to have Joe start us off. And really, as a sales leader, what are some of the challenges in getting programs that don't scale, essentially buy-in from your executive team or buy-in from the team in general to really embrace that idea of creativity?
Yeah, so I think it starts with the culture of your company, right? If you identify yourself as a company that's willing to think outside the box, you'll get a lot of buy-in from the team. And I think as far as showing buy-in to leadership and to the executive panel is as simple as being able to track the things that you're doing. A lot of this stuff isn't super expensive to do initially, so it makes a lot of sense to let your sales development teams be creative. You've got a lot of different personalities, a lot of different backgrounds there. So the more they leverage that, track your results, and it gives you the opportunity to double down on it in the future. You know, a perfect example is we had a sales development rep holiday season last year send some pop-up Christmas cards. We saw huge ROI on that send, so now we're already preparing to do that again this year. Not super scalable because holidays are once a year, but double down on it, make it a repeatable process year after year. And it's very, very easy to pitch and sell to leadership.
Perfect.
Could I say something too?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to do that?
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna go rogue with the mic a little bit. We'll have fun. One thing I wanted to add too. How many people here are in sales leadership right now? So a couple things I wanted to tell you guys to make a point on this is you probably have all kinds of cool talents and stuff that you can do with your sales team in their background. No one grew up and said, "Boy, I can't wait to work in sales." So like you should do a talent audit of what your people can do from a skill set and act off of that stuff. The way I'd pitch it to management, if they're asking about this stuff, is all you have to do is you have to basically, sorry, Mike's like feedbacking and I'm freaking out. All you have to do, think about it from this perspective. There's 220 business days in a year. All you have to do is have one win every day. If you have one win every day, you're gonna have 220 wins and those add up.
100%.
Yeah, I can add on. So internally, what made us think that, okay, that we should kind of focus more on things that don't necessarily scale. When I first started at Lead IQ, we had buyer persona cadences that were built out that were kind of like automated, and they were just tailored to specific buyer personas like VP of Sales, Director of Sales Ops, and SDR managers. Out of the first 167 emails that we sent out, we got one reply. Because you have to go deeper than that. It's not like just everybody that is a director of sales operations has the same pain points and priorities. Like you have to like slow it down and do a little bit more research. And so one thing that I did as an SDR that didn't necessarily scale, it wasn't to 167 people, but just to 25 people. I did silly, wacky music videos where I played guitar. I don't even know how to play the guitar. But I got out of these guitar videos and freestyle rap videos and other silly music videos that I was sending to prospects, out of 25, I got 23 out of 25 to reply. 23 out of 25 reply rate. 12 of those 25 booked meetings that converted to opportunities, and 4 of them are now customers. So when you do things that don't necessarily scale, it can have really good impact and results on the revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's really interesting about both of those points is that each individual is unique and each individual is going to do their thing, but Melody's expertise is in operations. And so something from an operational standpoint is we have to be able to measure it some way, shape, or form, right? So how do we get our teams to communicate to us as an operations person that I want to try this thing, I want to do this thing? How can we kind of document some of that process as we're going through it so we know whether or not we do get those results? Because it's one thing if a rep comes to you and says, oh, I got 25 things out of this 27 I did. Was it really 27? Was it 30? Was it 35? Like, it could have variance, right?
Right.
So what does that look like?
Well, I think it's important to note that theoretically speaking, depending on your culture, depending on your budget, and depending on your values, anything can really scale, right? You just have to have the tools in place to do it. The important things to do to make sure your ideas are scaling is documenting them. And I know that sales reps, we don't want them doing administrative tasks, but just provide the knowledge and the metrics to operations, let us document them and get them out to everybody else so that we can track what's working well and what's not working well. The other thing to note too, to get buy-in, is you have to think, even if you do get the positive outcome that you want, you have to consider what are the negative implications that can occur and be prepared for those negative implications. And that will also help you know next time if it's worth the investment or not.
Absolutely. So when it comes to doing some of those things that maybe don't scale, but are a little off the cusp, playing the guitar even though you don't play the guitar, I also know you're a stand-up comedian, so he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve, right? What are some of those craziest things we've ever done? I'm going to kick that one over to Ryan. What are some of the craziest things you guys have ever tried?
Yeah, so I'll talk pre-Lead IQ, one of my favorite things I did. I remember there was this one time, I was the first BDR at this company called Dine, and they got bought by Oracle a couple years ago. When I left, we had like over 100 reps working there. We actually used to go do some crazy stuff, like we would we'd take people that were selling and we'd make posters of them. So like there's this one guy, Brian, that we had who grew his hair out for the wintertime because it was really cold in New Hampshire. And I called him, and midway through him getting a phone call, I called him, he's like, I'm in the middle of a haircut right now. He's from the South, so he had a Southern accent. He said he had a mullet. And I was like, oh my gosh, get your camera, let's take some pictures with you with a mullet and we'll do something with it with the prospects. And all we did was we would basically go take his camera, we'd make pictures of Brian with the mullet and sunglasses, and we'd write text like we're making almost like a one-page billboard for each prospect that we're making. We'd get a high-res printout of it and mail it to the prospect. Then our cold calls and cold emails turned into, did you get my package? Did you see the poster that we sent you? What do you think of the poster? Don't worry, Brian won't be on the call if you talk to us. I know he looks really creepy right now. And we made a bunch of jokes about that stuff. We ended up booking, I think, almost 40% of them into meetings. So you can do a lot of this stuff with whatever skill set you have. People here are into photography. You might be into video. You might be into editing. Vidyard, for example, has a rep on their team that does magic. He's now a CSM there, but he used to do magic for prospects. So he'd record a video of himself and be like, hey, prospect, and he'd have their name on a napkin. He'd say, I want to make your problems disappear. And he'd flick his finger and light the thing on fire in front of the prospect. I mean, I don't know magic, but that's pretty freaking cool. If someone did that to me as a VP, I'd reply.
Absolutely. So Joe, being at Sendoso, you guys are working with teams as they're sending out stuff, right, to companies all the time. What are some other kind of personalization things? I know you're a big sports fan.
Yeah,
There's some things
not
that
a
you do there.
Yankees fan.
I was going to say it, but I'm not going to say it. Not a Yankees fan.
Yeah, I mean, personalization's huge. I think any time that you can take a few minutes, find somebody's LinkedIn, find their Twitter, wherever they are on social, and make that personal connection, it's going to instantly make you relevant. Again, it's time consuming. It's not always the easiest thing to do. You can't do it for all 5,000 contacts your SDRs are responsible for, but you prioritize those couple of really high-profile VPs or C-level folks that you really want to get in touch with, and empower your teams to go out there and leverage, whether they find something on Amazon or just something creative that really resonates with that person, right? Colleges are always a super easy thing. when the Red Sox won the World Series, somebody sent me one of those dugout mugs with the Red Sox logo, the World Series thing. Like, I was super excited. It really resonated. Like, that's the kind of stuff that gets me to respond. And like, you guys are all leaders in the room. Think about what would capture your attention, right? What would be meaningful to you? And then empower your teams to do that.
Yeah, some of the stuff that I've done, we have they're now a customer of ours, and so I was talking to their SDR manager, and he said they had to wait until they could demo us until their VP of sales was back from his honeymoon. So he had just gotten married, obviously. So I figured, hey, I'll send him a gift for because he got married, and so he has a very Irish last name. And so I went on Amazon and saw a cutting board. I figured that's a good wedding present, right? Just like a cutting board, but it was inscribed with the guy's last name with a clover over instead of the apostrophe in his name. Obviously it's O something because he's Irish. And so that was delivered to their office, and obviously booked the meeting, and now they're a customer. So that's one example. I also last year noticed there was 3 or 4 prospects all at the same time when I was trying to get them further in the pipeline or book demos that weren't being responsive because they were having babies. And so my fiance actually is very crafty and makes custom onesies sometimes for her family and friends if they were having a baby. So I had her make onesies where I put the prospects, their company logo was on the front of the onesie, and then a little Lead IQ logo on the shoulder of the onesie, and we had those sent out and delivered to 3 or 4 prospects, and all of them obviously booked meetings, and one of them even posted about it on LinkedIn, how awesome they thought that was, that personal touch to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We love that. That's fantastic. With that being said, a lot of the things you guys have talked about so far require some budget. Requires some money. You got to be able to send stuff. Postage counts, right? What else can we do that doesn't require any additional budget? What's something that somebody could do as they're sitting here today?
So one thing that I mentioned earlier is I would recommend every sales manager here or VP to go home, get a Google form or type form, and do a talent audit. Send a survey out to your sales team. Say, I want everyone to fill this out, and collect things that your reps can do. Our team, for example, we have a guy that can rap. His name's Patrick. I don't know if you're in here, Patrick, but Patrick does raps and stuff. Jeremy does terrible singing.
And terrible raps.
Yeah, I like cutting a lot of videos, so I'll do some funny stuff with special effects and video and stuff. We have another guy that can draw really well. He makes comics and sends them to prospects. Find out what talents your team has, and those things are free. My dog Finnegan, for example, he's a corgi. He's super cute. And he does a lot of really cool stuff, he knows some cool tricks and stuff. I'll actually record him with my phone doing tricks for a prospect. And I'll talk to the prospect on video and be like, hey, prospect, personalization thing about them. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get my dog Finnegan to do a trick for you. Let's see if he does it. And even if he doesn't do it, I'll still send it because it's kind of funny. But I'll get him to dance or do a spin or a flip or something like that, and then I'll send it to him. You can do, there's all kinds, if anything in your life that comes up that's interesting, you can bring up. I was at the booth earlier today, and I went fishing at the pier 2 days ago here after work one night. Our head of sales took us out, and some guy caught a shark, and I took a picture of it. That's really cool, and I'm gonna go. That might not scale, but I'm gonna go bring that up with a prospect if I see they're into fishing. Now I have that in my pocket and ready to go for a fishing playbook. You can find different things that you can do wrapped around interesting things that happen in your life. Of course, as a rep and as a leader, you got to go do interesting things, though. Don't just stay inside and watch Netflix and cry all day.
Yeah, I think you basically hitting the nail on the head. It's all about building a culture where that creativity thrives, and you don't need a budget for that. So just allowing people to use their talents to make work a happier place, you'll absolutely draw in more revenue and more customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the other thing, right, outside of your employees' individual talents, look at their background, look at where they came from, right? For instance, I have an SDR who's a huge sports fan, used to sell tickets. So any sports teams we're trying to penetrate, instantly go to him because he can talk the talk, he can get super technical, he understands the ins and outs of their business. I have another guy that came from the financial industry. So all the financial accounts we want to penetrate, we leverage him. So leverage their background too, right? Their talents and their hobbies, all that stuff's awesome. but if they can truly speak the language of the persona that they're outreaching to, that combination is deadly. You'll see great results.
Absolutely. You want anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So like some ways that I actually take the hyper personalization that I do and actually scale it. So one example is if like a trigger to reach out to a prospect for me sometimes is if they view my LinkedIn profile. I made a post about this on LinkedIn a while ago. So if I see that I look like at least 2 or 3 times a day at who's viewed my LinkedIn profile to see if like maybe there's prospects there. And if there is, I have an email that I'll send them where it's a video in Vidyard where the songs, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Like I literally in the video am like dancing around, like really awful dancing. I'll be like going like this to that song. And there was one of our other BDRs, I didn't even know he was going to do this. He's in the background, like peering around the corner, going like this. It's a hilarious video. It's 30 seconds long, that's it. But I say in the email, hey, notice that you viewed my LinkedIn profile, didn't want to be weird about it, so I made you this video. And then there's the video there. Below the video is a 1 or 2 sentence value prop about like Lead IQ and why they should check us out, specific to them and their business, and then a call to action. So that I can scale. Like I can send that to many people, anybody who's a good prospect who views my LinkedIn profile. Another example is we did another video similar to that, like the song Moving On Up to the East Side, the Jefferson song, where like a few people from our company are like dancing around, goofy dancing to that song. And I send it to a prospect if I notice they recently got a promotion or have moved up in their career at all, which pretty much is going to be like any prospect that moves up somehow in their career. So I send them, hey, congrats, moving on up. Notice you're at this role and now you're at this role. You're really moving on up. Boom, there's the video right there. So like unless they're dead inside, they're going to at least smile or laugh. And then there's the value prop. I don't just send that silly video, with like a guitar or something. There's value in there. There's something that's personalized about that company and about why that specific person, the whole why you now thing, Basho training and Sandler training, like there's that value prop in there as well. But that video as well, I can send to many people. So there's ways you can scale it as well.
Absolutely. Something actually Jeremy and I were talking about last night at dinner too that I'm going to kind of elaborate on is we were talking about things that you can do as management to put these types of things together to encourage the behavior. And one thing that we've done at Discover Org a long time ago when we were kind of the young startup still is we had our Elton John outbound drip. And so in the case that somebody wasn't answering us, right, we're like, are you letting the sun go down on us? Or, oh, Danny boy. And we would have different email drips because depending on the target market and maybe their age, we would get an idea of maybe is this something that would catch their eye? Or are you lost in the Bermuda Triangle? Have you seen Amelia Earhart? Those types of things, people are like, whoa, that's a little off the cuff. So in terms of things like from maybe like email cadences, you're talking about super hyper-personalized. The Sales Loft talk was talking about like 20% is kind of that limit. Where can we take some of the things you're doing? Because you're talking about, I take a little piece of this and a little piece of this. It still feels really hyper-personalized, but I can do it really efficiently. So elaborate on some of that, either, because I know you both do it.
One thing that we do that I kind of call it this, and this is good for talking about what you talked about with measuring stuff, is we'll actually do stuff in campaigns. So it's almost like how marketing will go do a campaign when they're doing something. We'll do it for prospecting. So if I want to go and let's say I'm sending piano songs to a prospect or something, I'm going to actually go put all these people into my Salesforce, but I'm going to attach them to a campaign that I made in Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And when the opportunity gets made, I'm going to attach them to the opportunity to that campaign so I can measure it. That's one of the ways that we measure this stuff. One of the easiest ways to actually do this stuff is have your reps do it from like an assembly line. So instead of going and saying, I have these 10 prospects, here's a prospect, I'm gonna look at them, research them, write a song, write lyrics out, then record the video, then send it to them. What you do instead is find 10 prospects, write lyrics all in bulk, then record all of them in bulk, and then send them all in bulk, and then do your follow-up all in bulk. Like, do those things almost like an assembly line where you're doing each piece of the puzzle. One thing I wanted to add earlier too is I know a lot of people that when I do talks about prospecting and stuff will say like, oh, you can't do this in the Ben & Jerry, like you can't do this with like enterprises and companies that you're going after. But the thing is you start working with these bigger companies and stuff, the people that are in those positions got there because they're extraordinary. And if you send ordinary outreach, why are you gonna wanna talk to some random rep that lives at their mom's basement and just started as an SDR, right? Like they're gonna wanna talk to someone that's extraordinary and different. So you have to do something that's extraordinary and different. One of the easiest ways to kind of get culture to adopt this, and I recommend everyone do this, we don't have to do this at our company because our culture is already set like this, but Google does this thing with engineers called off roadmap days. And what they do is they give engineers 1 day a month where they can use company resources and work on something that has nothing to do with Google. And this is how random things like Gmail were made, Google Hangouts was made this way. These different products get made by people doing these off roadmap projects. You should do the same thing with prospects. Start with 1 day a month, give them an off roadmap day where they don't do normal cold call, no normal cold email. Just focus on everything they do is put as much thought into it as a Super Bowl ad. You might lose 1 day in activity, but you might learn something like Jeremy has that you can keep scaling and repeating over and over again. Everyone should do that. I would recommend you do once a month and then start doing it on Fridays. And it'll make reps look forward to Fridays a little bit. Use it for experimenting. Make sure you send it through tools where you can measure stuff and attach it to campaigns, and you'll be in a better position to see if it's working.
So I want to kick this one to Joe really quick. When you're doing those types of things, I think that's a fantastic idea because creative thinking is really, empowering for most people. We like to call it green light, red light thinking, right? Let everybody get a green light, just go, dream as big as you can dream, and then we're going to kind of go back through it, come through it, and pick out the best stuff. How do you get management behind you on that if you're not the leader instilling it from the bottom? So let's say we're mid-level management, we've got to get our executive team or maybe our board members on board.
Yeah, I think it's all about showing results, right? Earning that trust, not being afraid to do some very small trial and error that you don't necessarily need big budget or a lot of buy-in for. And then again, like tracking what you're doing. It's so important. I referenced the holiday card send. We put a lot of money behind it for this upcoming year because it was so successful on a very small scale. We spent literally a couple of $100 on this last year, and it was a home run. So when you can go to them with just a small sample size, but everyone likes data, and if you can prove out this theory, you can prove this stuff works, they'll allow you to repeat it over and over again. You get 1 or 2 of these crazy ideas that work, or things that you can't repeat all the time. You get them to work once or twice, you'll start to get a lot of buy-in, and you'll get known as that sales floor that's fun and interesting and does things out of the box and captures attention. It's the best way that I can do is just give them hard examples.
Absolutely. Raw data always wins, right? Yeah. So we've got a couple minutes left. I'm going to open it up. Are there any questions? Anybody have? Yeah, go ahead. Here.
There is a floating mic, so if you can raise your hand and wave, I'll run it over to you.
Oh, there you go. Hey, look at her.
We can split it either.
Yeah, you split the back, I'll take the front. Cool. How about that? Here you go.
So I'm Travis Broussard, and just kind of building our whole sales and marketing team. And I was wondering in regards to I like what you said about the talent audit in your group. And how do you associate it with that within account-based marketing where you have 7 people you have your account list and you have your 7 or 8 buyers that you defined. Do you do kind of like a mind map of okay, here's the 8 buyers, really these 8 people within our organization that have these different talents or these different titles, they should be doing the reaching out. And how do you go about that? So it's not one person reaching out to all 8, but you kind of divide that resource.
So one of the things that we do that has worked well, and I did this at my old company too, it wasn't just selling to reps. I was going after IT people that hiss at light and hate sales reps, right? One of the things that we were doing that actually worked really well was marketing and sales have to be aligned on this stuff. If Jeremy goes and does something with an account that he's prospecting into, and it's to one account, we might go I'm not plugging any product, but we might go take a list of leads of people that work at that account, even if they're not our ideal customer person, retarget ads at them with that video that Jeremy did. Because if they're on social or they're on Twitter or LinkedIn, you can get employees to see it. If they see something that's different for that company, that's account-based, they're going to be like, holy crap, they're going to go share it with the right person. I once did a campaign at Dine where I made a music video for Hulu. I wanted to break into Hulu. I wrote it to the CTO and a couple IT people. I didn't even email the CEO. He actually saw the video somehow, emailed me and said, hey, Ryan, this video is great, nice work. I'm introing you to the right person to talk to. And he introed me. And then he forwarded my email to Fortune magazine. They wrote an article about it. That's the idea that you can do. Go after people at the whole account level. And if you're doing something really cool, go all in on it and make sure everybody sees it, even if you don't. You gotta be loud about this stuff. Same thing with investors too.
One tip that I have with account-based selling and trying to sell to like a bunch of different people within a target account is I'm a big advocate of like the bottom-up approach, and it's worked for us quite a bit at LeadIQ. One quick example is I actually, I get a lot of SDRs that will just connect with me on LinkedIn and stuff. And so one of, this target account, I just said in a LinkedIn message, hey, I'm trying to get a meeting with so-and-so. Can you help? ? That's it. That's all I said. They said, today is her last day at the company. So you should actually reach out to so-and-so instead. If I didn't do that, I would have been reaching out to that other person over and over, sending calls, emails, trying to like connect with them on LinkedIn, and I'd have no idea that that person is leaving the company. So ally and partner with people, that are like the end users of your product, and they'll be able to give you information. They might not be the decision maker, but that's one way that can you'd overcome a lot of roadblocks when you're doing account-based selling. If you only go for the top, then you're missing out on a lot of information that the people on the bottom could help you out and uncover.
All right, guys, I hate to do this, but I have to cut you guys off. We can do one more really quick question if someone has a quick one.
We got one right up front here. I got you.
We'll repeat it. I'll try to be quick. Okay. Hi, guys. My question is in regards to your personal investment with your reps. I try to read a lot of books on leadership, and the common theme that I see is good leaders will try to get their team members to the next level in their career, even their job. So what are some practical things you guys do to help to get your reps to the next level in their career?
So one really quick win that I had at Sendoso, when I came on board, we were building the inside sales team from the ground up. We built a layered approach to the SDR team. So by overachieving their quota, they go from SDR 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then we made it very clearly, get to SDR 3, prove you can hit that number, prove that you can do all the things we're asking, and that's our promotion pool, right? So we started this team about a year ago. I've had 8 people promote off that team. They went 1, 2, 3. Some of them went into SMB, some wanted to move to partner, some went to expansion, but it's been a very, very successful outline for us.
I would also add, be hands-on. Don't just be like a cheerleader for your reps. Show them what you know. Work with them. Be hands-on with them. Like, take a more like a mentor approach.
Absolutely.
Sorry. The only other piece I'd add is empower them. Right, let them know that you're their biggest supporter. At the end of the day, none of us exist without the reps that work on the teams for us. So as much as we're busy, we travel, we have everything going on in our world that's going on, dedicate a couple of hours to make sure you're doing those one-on-ones. Understand where they want to go and help them get there. I've got reps now that aren't quite ready to make that next step, but I've already made the introductions to those other departments, so they know that the career path is there. If they know you're invested, you'll get a lot of longevity out of them and a lot of buy-in. Those are the guys that'll run through a wall for you.
Excellent.
Just really quick, I would just add too, the SDR is not necessarily a low-level role. That's the perception is that it's a low-level role, but it doesn't. The SDR, if you're a really good SDR who's crushing it and you're getting high quantity meetings, you're one of the most valuable people at a company. So kind of maybe foster that, even though it goes against the grain of what a lot of companies think in the tech scene, maybe foster that it actually is not necessarily a low-level role. People can get promoted to SDRs.
Right, it's fundamental. All right, thank you so much, guys. Thanks to panel. And if you guys want to come find these guys, they'll all be at their booths outside.